Most preppers are building the wrong pile, and it's going to get them killed because they're hoarding gear when they should be hoarding knowledge that doesn't need batteries or a supply chain to work. You can own every gadget in the catalog, but when the trucks stop rolling and the warehouses are picked clean, all that expensive equipment becomes deadweight unless you know how to improvise with what's actually around you. This is about the survival skills nobody's teaching, the ones that turn trash into tools and make you dangerous in the best possible way. First, learn to make activated charcoal from scratch because it's the ultimate filtration material that solves problems you didn't even know you had. Find hardwood like oak or maple. Burn it in a low oxygen environment until it's completely charred. Then crush it into powder and heat it again with calcium chloride or even just lemon juice to open up the pores. This stuff filters water by trapping contaminants in millions of microscopic holes, pulling out bacteria, chemicals, and toxins that would otherwise turn your intestines into a war zone within hours. Most people think they can just boil water and call it safe, but boiling doesn't remove heavy metals, pesticides, or chemical runoff from industrial sites. In fact, if your water is contaminated with metals or chemical runoff and you boil it, you're just making a more potent death juice. Activated charcoal does, and you can make it from a campfire and some salt if you know what you're doing, which means you've just turned a dead tree into a pharmacy. Second, master the art of making cordage from plant fibers. Rope is the invisible foundation of survival that holds everything together, and buying paracord in bulk won't help when it runs out or rots. Look for plants with long fibrous stalks like nettles, dogbane, or even cattail leaves. Then, strip them down and let them dry until they're pliable but not brittle. You twist the fibers together in a reverse wrap technique where each strand is twisted clockwise, but wrapped counterclockwise, creating tension that locks them into a surprisingly strong cord that won't unravel under load. This isn't just some bushcraft party trick. This is how you build shelters, make traps, repair gear, and tie down everything that matters when there's no hardware store to bail you out. Once you can make cord from weeds, you're never really without resources again, because every field and forest becomes a hardware aisle. Third, understand how to preserve meat without refrigeration using methods that go way beyond jerky because protein is survival currency. And if you can't store it, you can't capitalize on a big hunt or a lucky find. Salt curing works by drawing moisture out of the meat through osmosis, creating an environment where bacteria can't survive because they have no water to function properly. Take your fresh kill and pack the meat in layers of coarse salt. Let it sit for days until it's firm and significantly lighter. Then rinse off the excess and hang it somewhere cool and dry with good airflow. Smoking adds another preservation layer by coating the meat in antimicrobial compounds. These protective properties come from the wood smoke while simultaneously drying it out even further, giving you shelf-stable protein that lasts months without a single watt of electricity. If the Vikings crossed oceans on this stuff, then you can cross whatever apocalypse is coming if you know how to do it right. Fourth, learn to make lye from wood ash, which is scientifically known as sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. It's useful because it unlocks an entire chemistry set of survival applications that most people never knew about. From a simple campfire to soap that prevents the infections that kill more people than bullets when medicine runs out. You take whitewood ash from a hardwood fire, not pine or softwood because they don't have enough potassium. Then you run water through it repeatedly in a makeshift filter until the liquid coming out is slippery to the touch and can dissolve a feather, which tells you it's concentrated enough to work. Mix that lye water with rendered animal fat in a 2-to-1 ratio, let it cure for weeks, and you've got actual soap that kills bacteria and keeps cuts clean. This might as well be post-apocalypse gold with the amount of uses it has. But lye isn't just for staying clean. It's also for processing corn through nixtamalization, which makes the niacin bioavailable and prevents pellagra, the vitamin deficiency that wrecked entire populations who relied on corn without knowing this one chemical trick. You can also use lye to cure hides faster, break down tough plant fibers for easier processing, and even make biodiesel if you're ambitious enough to chase that level of self-sufficiency when gasoline becomes a fairy tale. If you made it this far, you're already ahead of most people because you're thinking past the fantasy and into the mechanics of what survival actually requires in a world that doesn't care about your plans. We still have half the list to go through though, so let's go. Fifth, understand the principles of earthen construction, because when your tent rips, your cabin burns, or you just need something more permanent than tarps and duct tape, you can literally build walls out of dirt if you know the science behind it. Cob construction mixes clay-rich soil with sand and straw in specific ratios that create a material stronger than you'd think. It's moldable like clay, but drying into something that holds weight and sheds water when you add a good roof and a lime plaster coating. The thermal mass alone makes it naturally climate controlled, staying cool in summer and holding heat in winter without any power input, which matters when your only heat source is your body or a small fire you can't afford to keep burning all night. Rammed earth takes it further by compacting moistened soil into forms, creating walls that can literally last centuries if you protect them from rain, which means you're not just surviving, you're building something that outlasts you. Sixth, know how to identify and process wild clay for pottery, because being able to make containers that hold water, store food, and survive fire gives you capabilities that put you centuries ahead of someone just scraping by with plastic bottles that crack and degrade. You find clay near riverbanks or in areas where water cuts through soil layers. Then, you test it by rolling it into a thin coil to see if it bends without cracking, which tells you it has enough plasticity to be workable. After shaping your pottery, you dry it slowly over days to prevent cracking, then fire it in a pit kiln using wood and dung as fuel, reaching temperatures that turn soft clay into hard ceramic that won't dissolve back into mud the first time it gets wet. Seventh, medical knowledge is more valuable than medical supplies, and here's why that matters more than you realize right now. Bandages run out, antibiotics expire, and that fancy trauma kit you bought online won't help you if you don't know which end of the tourniquet to twist. You need to understand basic wound care, infection prevention, and how to keep someone alive long enough for their body to do the actual healing, because doctors won't exist in the numbers you need them to. Learn to suture, learn to set bones, learn to recognize sepsis before it kills someone, and for the love of everything, learn CPR that actually works, not the movie version. Eighth, community beats isolation. And this is where every lone wolf prepper fantasy falls apart under the weight of basic human needs and capabilities. One person can't guard a perimeter, maintain a shelter, gather resources, and stay sane all at the same time, and history proves this over and over in every disaster scenario ever recorded. The survivors are always the ones who built networks, established trust, and created systems of mutual support before things went sideways, not the hermits with 1,000 rounds of ammunition and trust issues. You think you're going to rebuild civilization alone in the woods. You're not. You're going to go insane or get killed by the first group that wanders by. What makes these skills different from the usual prepper checklist is that they don't expire, break, or depend on supply chains that vanish the second things get interesting. You're not storing solutions. You're becoming the solution, which means you're valuable in ways that a guy with a basement full of freeze-dried meals will never be. When everyone else is rationing their last pack of water purification tablets, you're making charcoal from firewood. When their store-bought rope frays apart, you're twisting new cord from plants they're walking past without noticing. When their gear fails, you're building new tools from raw materials that were invisible to them 5 minutes ago, which fundamentally changes your position in any group trying to make it through hard times together. Now that you've made it to the end, I have a mission for you. Here's what I want you to do next. Pick one skill from this list that you don't currently have, and spend the next 14 to 28 days getting dangerous at it. When the moment comes, you won't rise to the occasion, you'll default to your training, and right now your training is whatever you decide to make it. Share this video with that one prepper who hoards a bunch of everything, but if it came down to it, they wouldn't really survive all that long in the wild. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video if you learned something and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Stay sketchy.